And now the recording is in progress. Good morning, folks. Happy to be back after a little disappearing act that I had to pull. Some of you know what was going on. Some of you do not. It was all about work. It was not about anything medical or anything personal. Had to invest a lot of time in my work environment, and that took me away from a lot of things, but I was happy to be able to play a little bit on field day. And I was happy to work at least a few of you during field day. So we're going to get started the way we normally do. For those that have been here before, and I know it looks like a short crew today, but we'll take the 18 that we've got that look like they're online. As usual, if you are able to stand and rise for the pledge, we'll do the pledge really quickly. If you have hats or other cover on, even if you're indoors, if you'd remove that, please. And ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, so I heard that we probably have at least a few new members, and it's easy to become a member, as everybody should know by now. It's more fun to do interesting things once you are a member, but it's easy to become a new member. If we have any new members, if you'd raise your hand, Dave or Rob, if you could call them out, and we can go out and do introductions, why you've joined, what your interests are, what kinds of things you do with ham radio, and what you're hoping to do within ARES.
Let's start with Darren.
Hi there, good morning. I got into, he's messing with my mic. I got into ham last year with a technical and got my general earlier this year, and picked up a used HF transceiver that I'm been playing around with. Emergency communications and that kind of thing was one of the things that got me interested in amateur radio in the first place. So I thought this would be a great spot to expand my knowledge and help out.
Very good, and welcome aboard.
Thanks.
I think
Anyone
that's
else?
for new members.
Okay.
Did we miss anybody? No? Bruce, carry on.
All right. Very good, thank you. Dave, if you wouldn't mind, any new section announcements, any updates on the FCC licensing, things of that nature that might be important to the group?
All right, I have not heard anything on licensing other than now you have to have an FRN before you can take a test for everybody. They were using other things before, and now it has to be an FRN, so you have to be able to get on their website. Coming up today and tomorrow is the IARU HF contest, and then August 7th and 8th is 222 and up distance contest. I've been having a lot of section manager meetings and a lot of other meetings that I've been sending out links to. There was one on duplex the other night that I haven't seen yet. I was tied up, which should be pretty interesting. There are a few others coming up. One of the things there is a new field services manager at the ARRL. He's a past section manager from Texas. No, that's the other guy. They have two different people they've appointed recently or hired, and so we're going to be having a national section managers meeting with all 71 of us. So that should be some interesting meetings, and trying to make sure we can get more information from ARRL and in a timely manner and get it out to people. There's been with all these meetings going on, these Zoom meetings on Wednesday and Thursday evenings, there have been some people at the league that don't want those to continue. I'm not sure why. They don't want the section managers talking to each other, that kind of thing. We're trying to get all that straightened out. Hopefully next, the 27th, we have the National Section Managers meeting, so we'll see how that goes. This picture in the background here, ARRL does have mugs, and for some reason the rest of this picture didn't show up. So you can buy that. They have a lot of other ARRL marketing things. I just threw this up for fun this morning, just to get people's interest going. And if you have any questions on the league or anything, let me know, and we'll see what we can do to help you out. That's all I have for right now, Bruce.
All right, very good. Regarding the licensing, I had heard originally that we would probably already be in a place where the new licensing fees would be in effect, and apparently that has not taken place yet. And
No,
I don't
it
know.
has not.
Right. So I don't know what the updated timing is supposed to be, but the impact is that if you have a renewal, if you are, getting a new license and you're a newly licensed amateur radio operator, there are fees that will be imposed. If you do a vanity change, as an example, then the fee would be imposed. So for a lot of folks, there was a pretty big rush to go out and get things taken care of. If they wanted to go out and find a vanity call, or get one that someone had been sitting on for a while, or maybe convince someone to give one up, or create a brand new one that no one had even thought of. A lot of folks were doing conversions because of that. I don't know necessarily that it drove numbers of people to either get licensed more quickly rather than wait and have to pay the fee, but I know that from the conversion, the vanity perspective, a lot of people were taking advantage of that. So you've still got some time if that was of any interest. If you'd like to go out and change your call from what you have to what you'd like to have, this would be the right time to go out and get that taken care of, so you can save a few dollars. I know it's not a big deal, but it's money. Rob, anything that Dave missed, or anything of interest that the group may not be aware of or may not be caught up on?
Just a few comments. Thank you, Bruce. So congratulations to Poway Hams. They got double duty traction for their field day site. They were in a local UT newspaper, carried a field day story on Poway, and the link to that story got picked up by the ARRL. So if you get the ARRL email, you saw the link there to the Poway story. For the meeting today, we're encouraging people that on a completely voluntary basis to log the meeting using a 214A just for practice, just to dust off those cobwebs and try to find out where did you store in your laptop or in a paper copy of the 214A. And then after the meeting today, if you could send a copy of your 214A, completely voluntary, send it to Jay, AF6GM. And while I'm thinking of it, Dave, could you make Jay a co-host just as backup for the backup today for the meeting? And this fall for training, sometime we're thinking or hoping to plan an simulated emergency test, maybe to supplement a hospital exercise if it happens. But Bruce, we haven't heard much on hospital drills yet, have we? No, probably not, tabletop only. So assuming there's going to be nothing, we've got to do radio training, and so we'll plan a simulated emergency test of some kind. One of the Rat Pack videos given by N6VI talked about community involvement in communications, and suggestions were for an SET type exercise to involve community certs, maybe some FRS input for health and welfare traffic. So we'll sketch all that up, working with ECs, and try to come up with a simulated emergency test exercise this fall sometime. Many thanks to Ron, Munir, K6AQ, and the Valley Center Club for working on VAR FM. they're making strides to add another bar FM, maybe UHF, Digipeater or Gateway or something to the Palomar mountain range, which will certainly help us with exercise or real world record traffic. Another plug for Rat Pack videos that Dave mentioned. I've got the Rat Pack video page where the Google Docs page where they list the links to all the videos. I've got that bookmarked so I can flip in, and when I go for my walk, I listen to the videos that have come out in the past week on their Wednesday and Thursday training sessions. A great collection, a national audience, national speakers speaking to a lot of topics which are very individual, local area and subject range. Earthquakes, if you've been following the news up north, they had a few shakers, they had a 5.0 or 6.0 and a lot of things in between. So a good reminder to us in Southern California of everything and some of things that could happen to us down here in the Southland. And that's all for me. Back to net, K6RJF.
Thank you, Rob. All right, very good. So a few additional comments, items. We'll get started with today's agenda. The hospital-related drills haven't been discussed in any great detail. There is an expectation that the state of California is still going to expect execution of something to do the validation or certification for emergency funding. For those that don't know, the purpose of the drills really is twofold. It is to specifically have the facilities, healthcares, clinics, anybody that provides healthcare that is regulated by the state of California is supposed to participate. And that includes nursing homes, skilled nursing facilities, outpatient surgery centers, anything that, again, is regulated by the state of California. I think, jokingly, the only thing that doesn't fall into the category now is dental and oral surgeons. It's pretty broad in scope these days. And effectively, the state of California expects that you exercise your facility, test your emergency procedures in a documented way and a structured way. And for doing so and showing the documentation, showing the effort, you are given by the state of California or granted by the state of California some monetary compensation that is supposed to be used to help build out or improve or bolster something from your security and your healthcare fallback for operational needs. So in some cases, they're buying emergency supplies, medical equipment. Sometimes they're buying radios, which is the one that I like to hear. And if they get the funding, they will perhaps buy something that will be of benefit to either the local hams that are on site supporting the site, because we do have that happen in some cases, or buy some equipment that might be part of a go kit, as an example, or even part of permanently installed building equipment. It's not a requirement that they have to spend the funds that way, but some facilities have earmarked and chosen to do that. Other facilities, like Sharp, voluntarily go out and invest in the effort to go out and be able to support the emergency communication efforts that we're involved in. And to that end, they actually do put up, in some cases, antennas that are permanently installed at a location within the building. So a operating team from ARES that needs to go there simply needs to connect to both power, if it's available, and a antenna connection that's already there that puts them into an antenna that's way up on top of a building, and far better than anything that would be just sitting there with the go kit itself, although sometimes that's sufficient. Having an antenna up in the air and on a big building is much better. So the drill is important to get state funding. A lot of folks do it because they're getting state funding. And while that's the carrot at the end of the stick, it's not the only reason the state says you must do this. So as Rob pointed out, there may indeed be a paper-related drill. It depends. I don't think the state at this point, candidly, is planning formally a drill. And usually what ends up happening is while the healthcare facilities want to do something healthcare related, other organizations that are within the state, like OES, in this case, it would be Cal OES, often end up taking over the event, and it becomes a little bit less than a healthcare related flavor or orientation. It usually becomes something that's more of a civil or civic disturbance type of drill or event, rather than something like an earthquake, like a patient surge event, which we were clearly in last year while we were having the virus related issues, and loading at the facilities was much higher than normal for specific reasons, and there were specific handling practices that needed to be put in place to go and protect people. So we'll see what happens. We are hopeful for a drill. Everything that I've heard so far has been that there will be a drill, paper at the minimum, but they absolutely do want ARES to be involved. So we'll see what the subset of that is, and we might wrap that into our own event, like we frequently talk about doing to do backfill. There aren't any other events that I know of that are coming up. The CQ Worldwide VHF event, I believe, is next weekend, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's the third full weekend, but it could be the one after that. So there is another limited scope VHF event, only 6 and 2 meters. It's coming up. And if it's not next weekend, will be the weekend after that. I just don't have my fingertips at the browser to be able to pull that up. So that's something to look forward to. We can let people know via email. Let's jump to a debrief, if that's okay. And if there are no other questions, let's talk about field day to some extent. What people did, how people operated, things that you've learned, things that you would like to try differently next time. So the group basically has the ability to go out and interact, ask questions, and learn from what other people have done. There's always fun in doing that. So I'm not sure how many folks were on. I'm not sure how many people actually were able to participate. Start with a show of hands. We'll call people out and let's have a discussion.
We got Munir has his hand up. Go ahead, Munir.
So I went to Lake Marina and camped out there for the weekend for field day. I rented a camper van and drove and like got a campsite right there. I really only operated like that Saturday during the day. And what I noticed, well, there's definitely things I could have done differently. Probably biggest thing would be to choose a campsite where they actually let you put stuff in trees, because apparently San Diego County does not let you put anything in trees at all, and which would have been fine. I had like a vertical like antenna. I had a couple verticals, but the biggest one that I had was frankly too big considering the current weather conditions and the proximity to like other campsites, etc. So I ended up with the smaller one, and that worked out okay. Like I still did more QSOs than last year, but a lot of that was because I didn't do QRP this year. And that's probably the other thing I would have fixed as well. Like maybe for next year, I'll like go back to doing QRP and actually like ensure that I have a bigger antenna up to like compensate, because a few days ago I submitted the field day logs, and like I didn't get that many more points compared to last year, even though I got like 3 times as many QSOs. So, but I had fun other than that.
Anything specific that was memorable? I should have said that too, because there's almost always a memorable event or contact that happens, or something that occurred during the event that was fun or accidental.
I heard I was turning around on 20 meter on sideband, like right before I went, like I turned off the radio, and I heard W1AW like in Connecticut. So that I thought that was pretty cool.
Excellent. Who's next? Let somebody pick.
All right, we got Patrick next.
All right, I apologize for the screen being off, but I'm having issues on this end. It says that it's not responding, it's lagging and things of that nature, so I don't want anybody to be distracted by that. But I also participated in it. It wasn't intentional. It was only to start out monitoring what was going on over in the Mission Bay Tecolote Park area. And it started out with nothing but a lot of noise. You know, it was a struggle initially to get anybody to either hear me or them to, me to hear them. But after a while, things started picking up. And I was working 40 meters in more specifically on a 7.246 frequency. And there are a lot of stations that I was getting was coming from the California side naturally. I was able to work some stations in New Mexico, Nevada, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and in the East, in the DC area, the metropolitan DC area. And I ended up working on the 20-meter side. But there are some issues that were taking place over there. I wasn't sure because of the location I was at. The antenna that I was using was a homebrew. And the radio that I was using was the Yaesu FT891. There are some things that I definitely need to work on and see if I can follow through in finishing up on my wire antenna. That might be a good option for anything in the future. But as I said, I was not intending on working, just wanted to monitor and see what the activity is like, but particularly in our area. So we're working 2B for San Diego group. So it's was a challenge, but nonetheless, a lot of people managed to later on in the evening got a chance to work some of the contacts. And I only worked that one day, like Manir indicated. I only worked the Saturday. So I got about 20, yeah, I got about 23 contacts, and that's pretty much it. K6BFG.
Very good. Thank you, Patrick.
All right, next is Jonathan.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Very good.
Okay, so I set up, well, I operated with the Ramona Outback Amateur Radio Society, and we did a full field day setup in a field along Highway 67 going into Ramona. We used their emergency communications trailer, which has battery and solar power, a tip over tower, and a 3-element beam for 20 meters, as well as 2 vertical antennas that we set up in the field. We were running as a 3 alpha station. Our biggest challenge, in my opinion, was interference between the radios. We didn't have any kind of bandpass filtering. So, you know, there was significant interference anytime someone would be transmitting on one of the radios. And that really limited our ability, for example, to just set up on a frequency and call CQ all day, because if we had someone doing that, they were transmitting so much that no one else could hear. I guess the other issue that would have improved, and I should say we had a very successful outing. The other issue that came up is 20 meters in particular was so busy that the lack of really good filtering on the radios was kind of an issue. You know, we had people basically 1.5 kilohertz apart from each other, and at times you couldn't tell who was on which frequency and who you were talking to. If we were using slightly more advanced radios, I think that would have helped. Notable contacts. So late Saturday evening, I brought my son up there. He's 13. He was able to make a sideband contact to Russia, Radio Alpha 3, Radio Charlie Lima on 20 meters. And then also got a couple of Alaskas and a couple of New Yorks. And then the band just shut down and we were pretty much done for the night. But yeah, overall, it was a really, really good experience. I don't know what our scores were, but you know, we made hundreds of contacts over the contest period.
Very
And
good. Any questions for John? Excellent. Thank you.
All right, next is Marty. Go ahead, Marty.
Good morning, everybody. This is Marty here, Alpha Foxtrot 5 Tango. I operated as a 1 Delta on a field day. I was trying to decide between going outside or staying indoors. Indoors, definitely 1, not necessarily by choice, but I had some work issues that I was dealing with in parallel. So it's kind of forced a field day. So I used the time to really kind of work through different bands, different modes. And what I found was most successful was actually contact on 40 meters and 20 meters. The probably the biggest surprise was that I had a very hard time seeing stations or even hearing stations in Texas and Florida, which I usually can reach from my QTH. So that was somewhat unusual. I thought, but otherwise made a lot of contacts in Oregon, Idaho, kind of a Pacific Northwest. I think the furthest contact was a digital one with Australia. So that was I was very excited about that. The probably the biggest surprise shock that I experienced was I was listening to on 220 and then forgot I turned off the radio, and then suddenly out of nowhere there's a very sort of a loud booming voice coming out from my 220, and so I thought it was actually at first didn't realize what was going on. So I think that was a lesson to basically say, well, turn down the volume when you're on a different radio. I think compared to last year, I felt the band conditions were a little bit more challenging. I think especially on 40 meters, had a lot of, at least my location had a high noise ceiling. So I thought that was less good. But then as far as overall contacts are concerned, even though I operated less this year, I still got a similar number of QSOs. I think it's around so 150 or so QSOs from my location. So I was very happy about that. So ambitions for next year, like to get all my station operate on a battery. So that's something in the works. I got the radios on battery, but I am still looking for solutions to kind of get my computers and powers on battery as well. So that's a challenge I set for the coming year. Also, I'd like to join some field day outing since I've never had the experience to actually experience field day in the field. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. Other than that, I had a lot of fun and yeah, look forward what everybody else's experience was. 73s to all.
Very good. Thanks, Marty.
All right, next on the list is Bill.
Good morning, all. Bill K1CT here. I participated with the Coast Guard Auxiliary radio group. We were down at Mission Bay Park. A very modest setup. We're running an IC706 into mobile antennas on a car. So we were not anywhere near the top of the pileup. And we're running battery powered 1B. And it was mainly a social event and a training event, introducing folks to HF radio and that sort of thing, because a lot of the Coast Guard Auxiliary folks are involved in VHF stuff, both through our repeater, but HF is something we're still promoting. And it was kind of challenging because of the efficiency of our antennas was so poor that, like I say, it was difficult to make contacts. But we did make some, and as usual, CW came through. We made contacts on CW. Luckily, I brought my old hand key along with me, and we set it up on the tailgate of the Volvo, and it worked just fine. One of the things that we wanted to pass on to folks is that when you're troubleshooting radios in the field, that with today's smartphones, you can surf the web and go to a Kiwi SDR and listen to yourself and troubleshoot your situation. If you don't think you're getting out, you can tune up Kiwi SDR to hear whether or not you are. And we did tune ourselves up and found out we weren't until we fixed some things. So that was very handy and shortened the OODA loop on figuring out what the problem was. So that's all I have to report. It was fun, and did some follow-on contacts from home as well.
Very good. Thanks, Bill.
All right, next is Ron.
Okay, thank you. The Fallbrook Club did a virtual field day again this year. We had 7 stations, home stations participate, and we tied the stations together using Zoom. So it was almost like being there, being able to visit with what was going on in the other stations. And so, you know, kind of a scenario that could happen where you'd be relying on a home station. So some of the home stations had visitors, and you know, did some little extra preparing for field day. So that was a good exercise overall. And next year, we hope to be back to our field location. Thank you.
So I have a question. You said that it was a virtual field day. Were you operating under your own call sign or under a collective call sign?
No, going with the rules under our own call sign, but hooked together virtually.
Okay, just to coordinate what you're doing. Very good. I actually haven't heard of anyone locally doing that, although I've heard of that from other folks outside of the region. That's why I was asking. Anyone else? I see Steve might have his hand up, and
Yeah,
I
Steve has-
want to warn Jay. We're going to call on Jay since Jay operated under the Whiskey 6 Foxtrot call sign. Jay, I want you to speak to it as well, but we'll go with Steve first.
Okay, my audio coming through all right?
Very good.
Okay,
You're
very
good.
good. Well, I only operated for kind of minimally on and off on the Sunday morning hours. Given that I'm located very close to the coastline, maybe 100 feet above sea level, and I only operated on FM, VHF, and UHF. Most of my contacts then were from Point Loma, San Diego, Del Mar, up the coast, San Clemente, Orange County, LA area. Talked to a couple of, I think 3 different soda stations. Interestingly, I could hear a number of stations to the east of me here in San Diego County that came in, booming full scale, but they were unable to hear me on reply. The only one I had made contact was with JAF6GM, and that was on both VHF and UHF. So, but it was a fun time, and hope to be able to be more active next year.
Very good. Thanks, Steve. Anyone else? Dave, I don't know that I ever heard you on.
I'll be there.
Rob,
Okay. Yeah.
Bob, did you? Go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
Did you want me to speak now or later?
Now is good.
Okay. So I did what I call a noodle around at home, and I thought I'd try something different this year, and I tried mostly digital, mostly FD8, and that was interesting. I figured, let's work this a little bit. Let's go for the points, see what. And my experience was it wasn't anywhere near as fun as actually getting on and using sideband. So I most of Saturday I did just FT8 and VHF, UHF, and then I operated one echo. So it was really tempting to run two radios, at the same, one on voice, one on FT8, but that wasn't kosher. So I resisted doing that. It was interesting. The voice part I did Sunday morning, from like, I don't know, 9 to 11 or whatever. And that was actually, for me, a lot more fun than FT8. Yes, FT8 is probably going to be more lucrative. I was just pulling up my log from last year, and I think, if I got this right, if I opened the right file, it looks like I got about 54 Qs last year, and this year I got 80. And, not very good. A modest improvement. I had a new antenna to play with, which might have helped a little bit, a GP9, and a 34-foot mast, so I could push it up well above the roof line. So that was good. But that's about it. Oh, it makes a big difference to have a radio connected to the computer so that it gets the band right. It slowed me down to have to go back and fix the frequencies. When I went from VHF to UHF, because I've got a dual band radio, I would hear a cue here and go over there to catch them again. And that was a source of consistent errors as I switched frequencies without the radio connected. I think that's about it. Any questions?
How did you do?
In terms of points, I haven't tried to calculate it, but 80,
Just contacts.
80 Qs, and let me open the other log file again. That's interesting. Open that. Yeah, I had some trouble with the logging program. I was actually on the Mac Roam Logger DX. I was going to switch from Mac Logger, and Roam Logger came up pretty highly rated. I was looking for something that had a map, and in the end, I just didn't have time to get it working. So I stayed with what was working from last year. So
All right. No worries.
I'll get back to you in a minute with when I get
Sure.
the log open.
Very good. Rob, did you get a chance to operate? Anyone else?
So Bruce,
Maybe Rick.
you want a quickie from me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was 1B1 battery in Alpine operating portable. I'm not completely happy with the antenna that I used, so I ordered a new one. I was using an end-fed 203 foot, which worked great as a receiving antenna, but because it's of the long length and the sag in the middle, I was not getting out. So for next year, I've got a shorter end-fed antenna on order, and hope to be able to keep it off the ground so it'll work a little bit better for that. I do have a question to ask the group, is that I tried copying the ARRL bulletin for the points, for the bonus points, but I never heard the West Coast broadcast of that bulletin. I was wondering if anybody else was able to copy the bulletin.
And my answer is no. And I had sent a message regarding that. Apparently it was a miss in the scheduling. They use FL Digi to send the message, and apparently they did an upgrade either the night before field day started or somewhere in that window. And while the update was applied, somehow the scheduled send of that bulletin didn't make it or didn't work, one of the two. So I don't know
I
that it
also
was.
tried on Sunday morning to
Yeah.
copy it to the second time around for the broadcast, and I could hear some noise in there, but nothing decoded. So that was a disappointment for me. I'd never tried to copy the broadcast before using digital, whatever BSP,
Right.
PSK mode they were using, but they couldn't get it. So for my disappointing transmitting capability, I could never break through the pileups on W1AW. Could hear everybody, but they couldn't hear me. So sideband only. I was about 22 contacts.
Very good. Anyone else?
All right, you said a little bit ago you didn't hear me on the air, and that's true. I was out riding around to the 3 sites that were listed on the field day locator. And unfortunately, there were only 3 that were on there. So one was Point Loma, Poway, and the Philomars group. And I have not seen the Philomars group on there ever. But they said they've been operating in that same location for the last 15 years. When I went around with Steve, we didn't see them. They weren't on there. We just couldn't find them, but they showed up this year. Good group of people. They were having a lot of fun. They were a little smaller than their usual group, but it was fun going around and seeing everybody. I think I would have rather been on the air, but anyhow, this was good. And Patrick has his hand up.
Okay, I was looking over the groups.io message that was sent out regarding submissions, log submissions, and bonus points. Now, the follow-on information is a little bit unclear. Are you asking that information, the logging information, after you put it in the ADI format, be sent as an attachment and inclusion with a message to Jay? So what's right there where it says agenda will include a discussion of field day anecdotes, lessons learned, log submissions, and bonus points.
Let me go back to what Rob said. Well, to me privately, and I think I heard in the beginning, for practice to fill out a 214A, which we would normally do during an event, to find your forms and this and that, right on target. I had a hard time finding the forms. So get on the net, get on the meeting. It's like, where's the 214? Oh, crap, I don't have it. So I had to go look it up and make some notes and then backfill the 214. So that was the purpose of the exercise, was just to sort of get familiar with the notion of filling out an ICS 214A as we would normally do on some kind of event. And if you want to send those to me afterwards, just a 214. I'm not looking for, please don't send 4 megabyte images of JPEGs. Just, relatively small. It doesn't have to be high res. PDF if you have it. Not a big deal. Just to kind of try to go through the motions to see what how quickly, how easily it would be to actually have that process ready to go if it was ever needed.
Exactly right. Just the meeting notes from today, just to keep them and send them to Jay. That's all.
Well, the 214. I mean, my meeting notes are a little more extensive than that. So.
Correct, in 214A format.
All right, I just want to make sure I got clarification, because when I see messages that are done in brevity, it makes it a little bit difficult to determine whether or not that there should be some follow-on information, especially when there's a follow-on paragraph regarding the ICS 214 alpha. Okay, thanks. Appreciate it very much.
All right, very good. Anyone else for field day comments? Okay, I'll do mine. So there's a group every year annually that does a Route 66 event. And what they do is they use a complete string of the call signs that are Whiskey 6. So the Whiskey 6 Foxtrot that we've been using for ARES for the last, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 years is part of that assignment. So if you ever go out and do a search for Whiskey 6 Foxtrot, you will almost invariably never end up with anything that you see for ARES for field day. You will always see that this string of call signs from Whiskey 6 Alpha through whatever the total end count is used by this group that does this special event once a year. And, you know, the goal is to go out and have people throughout the country, especially, but, you know, sometimes internationally, try to work these guys while they're on these different designated points of Route 66. So we used Whiskey 6 Foxtrot. This year we added Whiskey 6 Charlie or Whiskey 6 California to the mix. I think it would be fun someday, as an anecdotal little bit of humor, to go out and use a significant portion of these call signs maybe next year. That way we can have Whiskey 6 Alpha, Whiskey 6 Bravo, Whiskey 6 Charlie, etc., and do it for the ARES group for folks that are working at home.
Bruce?
It would just be humorous to do that.
I did actually hear Whiskey 6 Alpha on the air. I think they were in EOC in East County, but I'm not certain. Do you recall that?
Yeah. There was somebody operating the Point Loma Radio Club, I think, was operating under a special call sign as well. I think it was one of those. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I think it was W6R.
I think,
Yeah.
oh, were they? I thought they were K6RDF usually.
Usually, but not this year. They did a 1-by-1.
Okay.
Can Jay tell us how it was using Whiskey 6 Foxtrot?
Sure. I mean, it seemed that, you know, I wasn't going to do that at first, and Bruce encouraged me. Little did I know that he already had a Whiskey 6 call. But the idea was, you know, he said, well, you know, people will answer you. It's an easier call. You'll get more queues. And so, you know, maybe that accounts for the difference in, you know, the improved performance. Maybe the antennas helped. Maybe FT8 helped. But, you know, whatever the circumstance, it was a little bit, took a little getting used to, but it was okay. You know, might have resulted in more contacts. Of course, the special event call signs don't come up in the logger, so you don't, you know, they don't really know that I'm in San Diego until I tell them the section. So, for what it's worth. Yep. Were you looking for something like that, Rob?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, Point Loma was using W6 Alpha.
But I thought,
Ah, okay.
that's okay. I'm sure they were surprised to see other people pop up like we did. It was all fun. So I ended up doing something that I almost always do. There is never a field day for me where there's not money spent, and there's almost never a contest that I get into without money spent. I don't know how many folks have Costco memberships, but it seems like for the last 2 or 3 years at least, they've had solar panels that they sell at Costco, and it's usually late spring through about, you know, early summer, if not early to late spring, roughly. So they've got, you know, not anything super fancy. Coleman 100-watt solar panel comes with a charge controller per panel, and they usually run about $160 at Costco. They're like $159 something. If you buy them online, they're a couple $100 a piece if you shop them on sale. So Costco each year brings these things up, and Costco each year has them at some point available for $99.99. So $100 for 100 watts, plus you get a charge controller. And it's not a super fancy panel. It's not a super high efficiency panel, which is okay. But the things have a 25-year warranty on them, if you believe that, because you hope that Coleman will be in business for 25 years and Costco is, and that your receipt will be good for something. But it's always fun. I ended up buying 6 of those. So I bought 6 panels, and I ended up going next door to the auto center and bought 4 27 series deep cycle marine batteries. And I know that's sacrilege when people buy, you know, lithium iron phosphate, but I was looking at doing something that would probably end up being a donation to the ARES trailer. So 600 watts worth of solar panels is what I used. 4 group 27 deep cycle batteries, got everything rigged up at home. So my home is officially on solar for the first time, and I ran everything for field day on this. I had inverters that ran the computers. I had the radios running off of this. I ended up setting up a very modest VHF UHF directional antenna. So I had the rotor running off of this, and everything, lighting, the whole deal, and the 4 Group 27 batteries with a 1500 watt inverter, which wasn't needed because I was not using 1500 watts worth of power. Everything ran fine. It was an easy field day. It was a QRP operation. And what was interesting for me was that last year, effectively, we did the same thing, ran off of batteries the entire event. What we ran computers only, we ran the radios only. The computers that we were doing for logging were on AC power. But the radio gear, 5 radios on battery power, the entire event QRP. And the location last year was North County, which we thought would have a really good shot to the north for 2 meters especially, and hopefully be able to break through lots of people that talk in Orange County that effectively become like an RF wall, because if you're trying to work LA, you're trying to work north of, Orange County, the folks in Orange County chattering on the radio and doing things like that on 2 meters, it makes it hard to get through, especially when you're running low power. We didn't do well on VHF, UHF last year, and in fact had a very limited number of contacts. So from San Diego, further away, but effectively shooting over the water for the most part, 3-element antenna for 2 meters, 4-element antenna for 220, and an 11-element antenna for 446 UHF, up at about 35 feet. Didn't do anything on 6, didn't really hear anybody on 6, which was interesting. There were locals that were on and trying, but that was it. Also listened on sideband on the VHF and UHF frequencies, and only occasionally heard a couple of people. So everything that I did was interesting. It was brand new, run on solar the entire weekend and battery power, which worked out fine. And interestingly enough, I used the charge controllers that came with the Coleman panels, and they are absolutely nothing fancy. I'm sure they're made in China, nothing unexpected there, but didn't create any kind of noise or hash on HF that I was worried about. So that was a good surprise. Ran FT8 almost the entire event. So we ran on digital, didn't have to worry about colliding or getting clobbered in pileups. Had a few voice or phone contacts on HF, but most of it was digital. But what I did do was a lot of VHF, UHF stuff. And again, it was interesting. There wasn't a lot of sideband stuff. In fact, there's almost none. But we had a really good inversion layer for a good chunk of the event. It was actually very easy to work up to Santa Barbara and actually just slightly north of Santa Barbara. And we were doing this at 5 watts, 6 watts worth of power, roughly. Radios dialed all the way down. Yes, having a 3-element antenna on VHF is not anything spectacular. Jay was talking about his GP9, and the gain on the GP9 is about the same gain that a 3-element VHF 2-meter Yagi has. Very close. Actually, the 3-element may be slightly less. The difference is that instead of hearing everything around you, you're putting all of your power in one direction, and you're hearing, hopefully, in one direction. The 4-element at 220 was more gain than my Comet 333 was, so that was good, and that helped. And then the 11-element on 446 was a little more gain than a GP9 would have on the UHF side, so that helped out as well. But just on VHF, UHF, it was close. It was just shy of 200 contacts, which I wish we would have done last year or been able to do. So there was a ton of opportunities on VHF and UHF if you had a chance to play there. On HF, the conditions were good. We never had a band closure that I heard down here. Daughter and I were playing with this, And yeah, it thinned out a lot, but there was never really any bands that closed up. We were working 15 meters until past midnight, and it just thinned out. And we expected that to be thinning out because people got off the air, but 20 meters played all night, 40 meters played all night, 80 meters played all night. Interesting this year that we didn't make any contacts, nor did we hear anybody on 160. We usually work and hear, at least a few, if not maybe a dozen or so or more, even on low power digital, but nobody on 160 meters this year, which was kind of awkward and odd. So played with solar, battery stayed up, didn't have any issues running any of the gear, didn't have any issues with voltage drop or anything like that. So that was actually super cool. It kind of gives me an idea of what we need to do specifically with the trailer to do a modest operation. If we'd been running anything that would have been modest or regular power, I'm sure we would have put a dent in the 4 batteries pretty quickly. But maybe would have still made it through the night. Maybe next time we'll go out and play with that and see how that works out, just to check it out. The other deal was that this was also an opportunity to go out and exercise some gear. And specifically, in this case, we exercised a TS2000 that we received from AE60 a little over a year ago. So I was able to check out his radio, his digital gear, things that I hadn't been able to go out and do, exercise that over the weekend. So in the near future, you're going to see an advertisement for some of Art's equipment that we have talked about. And of course, just as COVID was happening, we're trying to help the family recover some funding, if you will, some monies. And we had his gear to be able to go out and do that. These were not donations to ARES. We talked about that early on. Whatever we're able to go out and sell his radio equipment and his accessories for that he had at the station, we want to do that and turn the money over to his family. So I've validated the radio works fine, the digital interface works fine. The radio's in good shape, which I'm happy to report. I actually used his dipole antenna, strung it up temporarily. So, I was able to at least check out what he was using for HF, and it's completely solid. Everything works the way it's supposed to. So you'll be seeing an advertisement for that, and we'll talk about what that would be like monetarily. I'd like to go out and sell the HF gear as a package rather than piece it out. So there's a headset, there's a digital interface, signal link, the radio itself, and some other accessories. So we'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about some of the other equipment that he had later. But it was a good opportunity to go out and exercise that and make sure the gear worked as it should, and it does. So we're able to go out and confidently say we will get that out there for hopefully sale in the near future, and hopefully we'll be able to resume meetings in the near future and have some of that in the swap meet style format if it doesn't sell online. I don't have anything else. Any questions, any comments, any other folks that might have had afterthoughts? Jay, I see your hand.
Yeah, you probably said it and it went right by. What kind of radio is Art's radio?
Kenwood TS2000. It's HF, UHF, VHF, basically shack in a box base station. And
Hey,
it's
Bruce,
a
could
satellite.
you comment on restarting in-person meetings? What's the holdup? Is it the venue?
Yeah, I don't have any word back yet. We're still, and I've got to be as candid, brutally, or otherwise as I normally am. I asked about it specifically, and there's still a question about whether or not there's going to be a legal problem having a meeting in a facility where there isn't mandated spacing between people. If you're following anything that's happening in the media, the California Department of Health, CDPH, has different guidelines than the CDC does. And the governor and the government here in California are following CDPH guidelines and not CDC guidelines. And there is a distinction. And specifically, even in schools, they're talking about mandatory masks for everyone 2 years of age and up. So the facility that we were in had concerns about cleaning after a meeting, spaces and spacing of people in the room, things like that, and even legal concerns about the fact that, you know, we held a meeting and it wasn't enforced that we had spacing in there, and they didn't have any hall monitors, jokingly, to go out and make that happen. Nothing that I know of has been restored. And now that we've got the media and all the people jumping up and down about the Delta variant, it's messing things up pretty big for any in-person meetings. It may be an opportunity, good, bad, or otherwise, to maybe discuss having a meeting at a restaurant location that has outdoor patio. But the problem is going to be when we start hitting groups of 18, 20, 25, 30, 40 or more, there's not a opportunity that I know of outdoors on a patio to be able to pull that off. So challenging still. I don't know what we're going to be doing about the outdoor event. We may end up just doing something that is more informal, like we're doing now, for the near future, until whatever the next thing is that everyone's going to jump up and down about, like the Delta variant, is taken care of. It's every time we think we're close to being done with this, something else pops up that is making people jump up and down. So no good answers on in-person in the near future, and not at my facilities either. So it's not just Sharp, it's even in my organization. I know that's still the case.
Hey, Bruce, this is Jim Brower.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering, how much was that radio and what was the model again?
It's a Kenwood TS Tango Sierra 2000. And I got to be honest, I don't know what the used prices are looking at like or for. I really need to go out and see what current market looks like for that in good condition. And again, I need to go out and try to get what I think the accessories will be valued at as well, because again, it comes with a digital interface. It comes with a headset, foot switch. I need to just put the package together so it's a package. I would prefer not to break it up if we can not break it up. It would make a really good turnkey HF, UHF base station. And it can be, you know, it's got a handle on it. You can take it portable if you want to. It would be a really good turnkey station for somebody. If you throw the antennas in, it would get someone on the air on HF immediately.
Did you say UHF, VHF, and HF?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm trying to stand up a disaster response team at our church. And so I'm looking for something that can do all three of those bands. So if you would let me know when you get some idea of cost, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. Happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Right, and John has his hand up.
Yeah, quick look at eBay for the Kenwood TS 2000 shows them running about $900 to $1,100.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I got to be completely candid with you folks. If you've watched prices on radios lately, it's way out of control. And I'm being completely serious. One of the market spaces that I run into occasionally is still CB radio, and I'm astonished and I'm stunned at what people are asking for CB radios that they think are collector's items or otherwise, and they're selling for, sometimes they're trying to get thousands of dollars. If you believe eBay, which I almost never do, to be honest, I'd be looking on QTH, and I'd be looking at some of the other amateur radio forums to get a more realistic idea. There's a lot of what's called shill bidding on eBay, and there's even, I'll call it groups of organized crime, because that's what I think that it is on eBay, where you'll see a seller asking more for something, and you'll get, and the person it gets sold to never actually buys it, but it shows that the transaction went through and they're exchanging great feedback for each other and things like that. And all they're doing is they're artificially driving the prices up to try to get what they want for something. And you'll often see the same radio or something very similar or things like that pop up within weeks or months after that with a different seller name and someone selling it for an equivalent price. And eventually they'll convince people this is what it should sell for, and it might actually get sold. It's just, that's the way it's been working on eBay for the last probably 5-10 years, and it's gotten really bad. And I think jokingly that with the stimulus money out there, people have a lot more free money on their hands, and that's driven up some of the prices as well, because now it's okay to spend $1,000 on a radio because you just got $600 of free money, and it's only going to really cost you $400 or $500 for that radio. I think that's caused the price bulge as well. The last time I saw the radios on QTH, it's probably somewhere between $700 to $900 is the average range for the radio alone. And again, I want to try to bundle it with how it was packaged at his base station. So there would be a power supply. I didn't mention that earlier. Power supply, radio, digital interface, headset, things like that, antenna, et cetera, we'll figure it out. But like I say, it'd be a great turnkey station, Jim. That would probably get you guys immediately on the air and cover that. The only thing we might need to talk about would be like a VHF, UHF antenna. Although he did have one of those as well. So we'll figure it out. We can talk about pricing.
Yeah, picking up those VHF, UHF small antenna for that, a diamond or something like that would be fine. Probably need a vertical for proximity with the church rather than a big hanging wire. So thanks a lot.
You bet. Any other questions about field day? All right, if nothing else, Dave, you want to wrap it up?
Sounds like a good idea. As Rob had said, try and make some notes on today's event and fill out a 214 and get them to Jay. And we will probably go over them either next week or the week after. And probably be the week after. So
one comment there, just to be clear, it's a 214A individual report, not a 214 unit report. 214A, 214 alpha.
All right, and for folks that played in field day, again, a reminder, I believe it's just about 2 weeks left to get your logs in. And the preferred format is electronic. They really don't want you sending in things on paper. There are online converters. You can go out and punch things in on different web pages that people have made available. It'll easily convert what you've got for maybe paper notes into what they want for electronic format, and that way you can submit it via the website for the ARRL. That's all I've got. Jay, got your hand up.
Yeah, one more question. So I was looking at the ARRL sites to try to figure out what the rules are, and I have a question about assistance. You know, did I use a spotter network? No. Did I use software that could tune more than one signal at a time? Does the FTA count for that?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
If people spotted you, they spotted you. You don't have any control over that. You weren't self-spotting or announcing that you were doing something via a reflector driving operations.
Right. Okay, thank you for your clarification on that. Appreciate it.
And I appreciate the fact that while we were working on VHF, in particular on 2 meter set, we would take turns. It's like, Jay, get in there and call for a while. Okay, I'm done. Bruce, you get in there and call for a while. And we left it open for other people. And it did drive some of the activity on VHF, especially on Saturdays. So that was good. And it was a good event. Like I said, maybe someday jokingly we can do Whiskey 6 Alpha through Whiskey 6 whatever, and maybe have 26 stations running through San Diego with that. That would be fun if we're still in the conundrum that we're in and we're allowed to do the 1 Delta stuff or the 1 Echo stuff next year. That would be fun. All right, 73 everyone. Dave, I'll let you close it out.
all right, so Rob, do you have anything else before we close it up?
Nothing for me. Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you. We'll get this recording going and get it sent over to Rob so he can post it here hopefully later today. Thanks, everybody, and we will talk to everybody soon.
Stay cool, be safe out there, folks. Hot days ahead, and charge your batteries, especially after the shake and bake stuff that we've had over the last couple of days. You never know what's going to go on.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, folks.